Hi all my students, how are we doing? And today I'm going to continue with a History-Civics paper, and we are doing the contemporary world, and today I'm starting on the topic of United Nations. Okay, so please open your textbooks to United Nations, and we are going to start with that topic today to understand the meaning of United Nations. Okay, let's start. Open your textbooks. Okay. After the bitter experience of the two world wars, there have been two world wars, and after the bitter experience of the two world wars, within a span of 25 years, so within 25 years, the world leaders realized the necessity for establishing an organization which was more powerful than the League of Nations, because we know that the League of Nations had failed after the First World War, which was the reason because of which the Second World War took place. So now the leaders have realized that there has to be something which is really more powerful than the League of Nations, so that there is no Third World War. Okay. They held many conferences. Who? The nations. They held many conferences to discuss the nature and the viability of such an organization, and their efforts finally took shape at San Francisco on October 24th, 1945, in the form of the United Nations organizations. So the United Nations was formed on 24th October 1945, the final one. Okay, so what were the reasons? We begin with the reasons. Why was there a necessity to establish such an organization? The first one, the disastrous world wars. The 20th century had seen two world wars that left a legacy of misery and depression in nearly every country. The wars cost billions of dollars, millions lost their lives, and millions of people became disabled, homeless, and unemployed. There came a realization among the world leaders that another world war might lead to the possibility of the destruction of the whole world and the human culture and the civilization. Therefore, they started thinking of an international organization to maintain peace in the world. So, supposing you are asked to write for the reasons in your exam. Now, in your reasons, writing this whole paragraph would be difficult. So, you write, when you write about disastrous world wars, you write point A, and you write it down. Point A, mass destruction of human life. Mass destruction of human life, and for that you have to write this point: millions lost their lives. Okay, millions of people lost their lives. There was a mass destruction of human life. Then point B, the untold miseries of the survivors. That will be your short heading, sort of, the untold miseries of the survivors. And what were the untold miseries? You can write this: people became disabled, homeless, and unemployed. So after giving these two reasons, then you say a world war, a realization among the world leaders, from starting from there, and you close your bracket at and civilization. So you get 3 full points for your short note. Okay, then we come to the second point, the failure of the League of Nations. The League of Nations was born after the First World War with a promise of peace, but it failed to prevent another world war, and many leaders of the world felt the need for an organization which would be more powerful than the League of Nations. So because of their failure, so the failure of the League of Nations was one of the causes which led to the establishment of the United Nations organization. Third one, fear of the Third World War. The peace treaties signed after the First World War had sowed the seeds of bitterness which gave rise to the Second World War. So all the countries feared that the Second World War could be the cause of the Third World War, which might lead to the end of the world. So because we have already had one bitter experience, that the treaties which were signed after the First World War actually became the cause of the Second World War, especially the treaties of Versailles and all. So that was a important cause of the Second World War. So the countries are now afraid that the Second World War itself would lead to the Third World War. Okay. Then division of the world into two blocks. At the end of the Second World War, the world was divided into two power blocks, one led by the USA and the other one led by the erstwhile USSR. Erstwhile means that time it was called as the USSR. both of them had opposite ideologies, and therefore they had no faith in each other. So USSR and USA, they both had absolute different ideology. They believed in different things, and their core belief was different, and they did not have faith in each other. So there was a division of the entire world into two blocks. A transparent and impartial organization was required so that they would be able to resolve the differences amicably rather than resorting to war. So this was also required. Okay, so this was one of the causes. Then we come to destructive weapons. Destructive weapons, you can also call it as the race for armaments. Okay, now what was that? The destructive weapons like atom bombs were invented and used during the Second World War. These could bring the end of the whole world in no time. They also led to an armament race for more destructive weapons. Different countries of the world felt that they should set up an organization where they could meet, discuss methods by which they could save themselves and mankind from destruction. So this need, this urgency was desperately felt by all the powerful nations also, because otherwise everybody was growing so powerful that the entire world will come to an end. If we have a third world war, the entire world will come to an end because everybody has strong weapons. Okay, so that much. Okay, now what I want you all to do is we'll read the origin of the UN. Even while the war was continuing, the leaders of the allied governments like the US President Roosevelt and the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill realized the potential danger of wars to humanity. They held many discussions that finally led to the formation of the United Nations organization, that is the UNO. The text for the UN Charter was drafted at the San Francisco Conference, which was held in June 1945. The charter was signed by 50 participating nations. So 50 nations had participated, and it was signed, means it was agreed by all of them. The United Nations formally came into existence on October 24th, 1945, and that day is celebrated today as including when the charter was ratified by 29 nations, including the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Since then, October 24 is celebrated every year throughout the world as the United Nations Day, because it came into actual formal existence on 24/10/1945. Okay, so that much for the origin and that much for the need, why you needed that. I've made a short note for you. Could you all please take a screenshot? Can you all see it? I hope it's clear. Is it clear, children? Yes? Okay. So let's read it quickly. United Nations Day is celebrated on 24th of October, and the first one was when the UN, means the United Nations, came into a formal existence, which was 24/10/1945. That is the day we came into, the United Nations came into existence. Now what was the reason for the establishment? Horrors of the two world wars, emergence. So the horrors of the two world wars, and then there was an emergence of two world powers, and these two world powers, there was an arms race, a race for armament, so arms race, failure of the League of Nations, and fear of a third world war. Okay, I've changed the sequence other than your textbook, but the points are the same. I've kept this sequence because I felt this is more logical and easier for you to remember. Okay, now we come to the origin of the UN. Although it's explained in short in your textbook, I would like you all to just go through this. Okay, in 1941 we have the London Declaration. Okay, 1941 saw the London Declaration, where there was a proposal to establish a world organization which was more powerful than the League of Nations. So it was in the London Declaration that this proposal was first made. Then in the same year, in 1945, the Atlantic Charter was issued by whom? By the then President of USA, President Roosevelt, and the British Prime Minister. Please add over there British. the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. So in 19, I'm sorry I missed out on that word. I must have made a spelling mistake, so then I forgot to write it. Okay, so we have the so first of all there was a London Declaration in 1941. Two things happened. What happened first? There was a London Declaration with the proposal that we should have such an organization, and the second thing that we had in 1941 was there was an Atlantic Charter which was issued by the then U.S. President Roosevelt and the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. So they formed an Atlantic Charter specifying what exactly the UN should have. Okay. Then in 1943, what happened in 1943? There was a Moscow Declaration. Okay. And this Moscow Declaration was signed by the foreign ministers. So this Moscow Declaration in 1943 was signed by the foreign ministers of USSR, USA and Great Britain. So and China also. So these four people, they signed the Moscow Declaration. Then what happened? In 1945 at Yalta, the UN Charter was prepared. So the UN Charter was prepared, means what they are proposing. The entire charter was prepared by the big three. Okay, now who are these big three? I want you to look at your book. On page number 159, we have a picture of the big three given to you at the beginning of your chapter. This picture. Okay, the big three. And the same picture is given to you even on the next page with their names. So you see, who were they? They were Stalin, Roosevelt and Churchill. So the big three, if you are asked about the big three, you have to mention these people. Okay. So in 1945, what happened? At Yalta, the UN Charter was prepared by the big three, namely Stalin, Roosevelt and Churchill. Okay, they have prepared it. Then in June 1945, what happened in June 1945? At San Francisco, there was a conference and 50 participating nations signed on the UN Charter, which had been prepared. And then 24/10/1945, that means 24th October of 1945, the United Nations came into formal existence. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Yeah, I've given you a full background. Now let's read. What were the objectives of the United Nations? The objectives for which the United Nations was established are enshrined in the preamble to the UN Charter. Now, what are the main objectives? This you are supposed to learn. It's a part of your syllabus and you should know it. Okay. The first one, to maintain international peace and security. That is the first one. This is in Article 1 of the Charter. Okay. To maintain international peace and security, to take collective measures for prevention and removal of threats to peace, to suppress acts of aggression or other breaches of peace. So basically, it was to maintain international peace and security at all costs. Okay. Then the second thing, to develop friendly relations among the nations based on respect of the principle of equal right and self-determination of the people. So you just underline this much, to develop friendly relations among the nations based on respect for the principle of equal rights. Then the third one, to achieve international cooperation. So for everything you have to have international cooperation to sign, say for solving international economic problems or social, cultural problems. There has to be international cooperation. So you underline that. To achieve international cooperation, and you can write in all fields. Okay, to make it short. Then because it's an exam and the more you try to write, the lesser time you'll get. Okay. Then to be the center for harmonizing the actions of nations in the attainment of these common ends. So United Nations was to be the center, the United Nations organization, the UNO, was to be the center so that the above three are maintained. Okay. Then to disarm, decolonize and develop are the three new objectives set by the UN. You should know this. To disarm, to decolonize and to develop each country or each nation are the three new objectives which have been set by the UN. Now the next point is the principles of the United Nations. If you see in your syllabus, you only have to do the objectives of the UN. Okay, so this principles of the UN is just for given for your information and for your reference. Okay, now what does it say? The principle is to respect the sovereign equality of all its members. So every member, every nation who is a member in the UN, they have their own sovereign equality, and they are all sovereign. Nobody can rule over nobody can attack nobody should try to control somebody else. That's wrong. Okay, then all the members should fulfill in good faith the obligations assumed by them. They should settle the international disputes by peaceful means. They would refrain from the threat or use of force against the state. They should give United Nations every assistance in any action that takes place. The organization should ensure that the states which are not the members of the United Nations act in accordance with these principles. So even if you are not a member of the United Nations, the United Nations on its own will ensure that you maintain international peace. Okay. The United Nations shall not intervene in the domestic or internal affairs of any state. Now over here the word state means nation. When we talk about the word state over here, it means nation. So United Nations will not interfere in the domestic, that means the internal affairs of any country. Okay, this is for your information. Now we come to the headquarters. You have to know, where are the headquarters? The headquarters are based in New York, USA. Except the International Court of Justice, which is located at The Hague in the Netherlands. So only the International Court of Justice is located in Hague in Netherlands. Otherwise the headquarters are based in New York, USA. You have a picture of the UN headquarters at New York. Please take a look at that. If this picture comes, then you know it is the headquarters of the UN, which is at New York. And the International Court of Justice is on the next page, page number 163. International Court of Justice, The Hague at Netherlands. Okay, so we have both the pictures in front of us, so you should be able to recognize them. And okay, then we come to the official languages. What are the official languages? Arabic, Chinese, French, Russian and Spanish. So these 5 are the official languages, and a speech made in any of these languages is translated into other 5 languages, but documents are written only in the working languages, that is English and French. So every document of the UN is written in English or in French. Okay. Then the flag. The UN flag is light blue in color and portrayed in white. At its center is the UN emblem, a polar map of the world embraced by the twin olives. Okay, a polar map of the world embraced by twin olive branches, and the United Nations national flag was adopted on October 20th, 1947. You have to remember this, that October 20th, 1947 was when the United Nations flag was adopted. Okay, and the picture they've given to you over there is a picture of the UN emblem. It's right in front of you. That is a UN emblem. You can see the 2 olive twigs over there. Okay, so that is a UN emblem. Then we come to the finances. The expenditure of the United Nations is met by the contributions made by the member countries. Whoever is a member has to pay so that it functions. Okay, then we come to membership. Membership bracket. Membership of the UN is open to all peace-loving nations who believe in the principles of the United Nations and accept the obligations of the United Nations Charter. So just saying that we want to be a member is not allowed. If you are a member, you have to accept the obligations of the UN Charter and you have to maintain peace. Okay. So you close your bracket over there. 50 countries who took part in the San Francisco conference signed and approved the charter, became the original members of the United Nations. Other countries are admitted by the General Assembly upon the recommendation of the Security Council by a 2/3 majority of vote. Almost all the countries of the world are its members. By 2021, 193 countries are its members. The last country to be admitted in the UN was South Sudan. Okay. Then we come to India as an original member. India was one of the 50 members who took part in the San Francisco conference. India was represented at this conference by Jawaharlal Nehru, who was our Prime Minister at that time. Okay, so he was represented by Jawaharlal Nehru. As an original member of the UN, India has been in the forefront of all UN peacekeeping endeavors. We are always there for maintaining peace. She has sent her troops to Africa and other parts of the world as a part of UN peacekeeping missions. So India was one of the original members who took part at the San Francisco conference and who signed on that. Okay. Then we come to the organs of the United Nations. Which are the principal organs? The General Assembly, the Security Council, the International Court of Justice, then the Economic and Social Council, the Trusteeship Council, and the Secretariat. Okay, all these are the organs of the United Nations, and it is only the International Court of Justice which is situated at Hague in Netherlands. The rest are all in New York, USA. Okay, so this is very easy. I think you all can easily learn up this much. And while you are learning, whether you're reading the notes or from your textbook, I made you all mark. But please do remember that you look at the pictures, because you should be able to recognize every single picture that is posed before you. You will never be asked a direct question. You can be asked like a picture of these three given, and then you could be asked questions on that. Let me see. Is there a picture given? No, they haven't given you a picture over here, but they do give that picture. They've given you a picture of the UN emblem, and then questions are posed on that. And then if you see, there is one box question where it is given 50, read the excerpt below. And what is the excerpt given? 50 Nations Charter, the Rights of Man, Peace by Strength. And then there are questions asked on that. Okay, so you have to remember how many nations were the first people and how the entire thing was carried out. Okay, so now in my next module I am going to do with you the composition and functions, what is given in your syllabus, the composition and functions of the General Assembly, the Security Council, and the International Court of Justice. I think we'll continue with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights today. So the next module we just have to do the three organs. Okay, now what exactly do we mean by human rights? Come to the end of the chapter on page number 165. Okay, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You have to know. Now you know what they've given in the syllabus is the meaning. Means you're supposed to know the meaning of human rights. That is what is given. Universal Declaration of Human Rights, only meaning. So what is the meaning given to you? See, the mark. The Charter of the United Nations states that the main objective of the organization is to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights. Now, what are the fundamental human rights? Human rights refer to those freedoms which should be available to all people, irrespective of their religion, race, caste, sex, nationality, or any of them. You have to have particular fundamental rights. Okay, these rights, now what are these rights? Fundamental rights, these include the right to freedom, the right to equality, the right to life, the right to education, and there are many other rights also which are mentioned. So that is the meaning. The Second World War, close the bracket over there, open the bracket. The Second World War horrified the world with human rights violations. What were the human rights violations during the Second World War which were carried out? Like genocide, torture, slavery, rape, medical experimentation, deliberate starvation, abuse, forced labor, mass expulsions, and discrimination on the basis of religion, ethnicity, race, gender, etc. So these were all the atrocities that were carried out during the Second World War, which of course we know, and therefore people were horrified, and therefore this Universal Declaration of Human Rights that you should not be doing all this. Then come to the next paragraph. In 1946, the UN established a Commission for Human Rights, the principal policy making body for human rights under the chairmanship. Now who was there was the establishment of the Commission of Human Rights, and who was the chairman? The chairman for this was, the chairmanship was of Eleanor Roosevelt, who who was the widow of the former US President Franklin Roosevelt. So the widow of former President Franklin Roosevelt, by name Eleanor Roosevelt, she became the chairman of this commission, and then they formed this. Okay, the General Assembly of UN adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that is a UDHR, on December 10th. Okay, that is why December 10th is celebrated as a Human Rights Day all over the world. Okay, so everywhere on the 10th of December we celebrate it as a Human Rights Day. Okay, so with that, wishing you all study all this, learn this by heart, so that we have everything ready. And okay, you don't need to learn, you may not be questioned, but I think you should know this. So even though it's not in your syllabus, I have marked it like the basis. Turn the page. Basis of all the rights of the human rights are articles 1 and 2. Now what are the articles 1 and 2? Articles 1 and 2 of the Human Rights Declaration is important because they are based on every man's freedom. They further state that the freedom cannot be discriminated. Now what exactly are these articles 1 and 2? The first one, article 1, says that all human beings are born free with equal in dignity and rights. Everybody is free, equal in dignity and rights. So that is article 1. And what does article 2 say? That everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, means in the declaration of the human rights, in the Human Rights Declaration, without distinction of any kind of race, religion, country, anything. So no discrimination at all. Okay, that much if you learn, it's okay. The rest you can just read up because it's just for information. Before I actually end this topic, before I actually close down, please refer to your, where we are reading about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You see a picture of Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General. So you have to remember his picture also in case you are asked for questions on that. And with that, I come to an end of this topic for today, for this module. And in the next module, we'll be continuing with the organs of the United Nations organizations. So till then, bye all of you all. See you all, and do study and come prepared so that it's easier for you to understand the next modules. I think I have given you all the pictures which were important for this module. We've seen all of them. So please remember that while you are reading, you go through each and every picture. Okay? Bye, Standard 10.